Good day! Magandang umaga! Mabuhay!
We are the Paitan Group.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Praise, syntax, clauses, biography, biography context, autobiography, mood, tone, sociocultural context are some of the words that will help us to understand the lesson for today.
Hello everyone, I am Kyla Bautista and I am one of the reporter for today. For today's lesson, we are going to discuss about the 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world, Quarter 1, Module 3, Lesson 1, which entitled Literary Approaches. Literature has been used as a part of communication before and up till now. These tell us stories, may they be historical stories or love stories, that most of the times gave us a lesson or guidance on how we will deal with the future and even our daily lives. In this module, we will determine the literary, biographical, linguistic, and sociocultural context of literary text. Therefore, we will learn to love and appreciate more the importance of literature. But wait, how do we determine the biographical context in a literary text? And what are biographical contexts? Well, a biographical context can be an author's background. Through studying the author, you may be able to connect the characters and their morals to the author's life and analyze the patterns and behavior shown between and among the characters, the authors, and you as a reader. For better understanding about the biographical context, let us listen to Michael Godwin's explanation.
Ito ay maaaring tungkol sa nakaraan o buhay ng manunulat. Sa pag-aaral o pag-iintindi ng mga impormasyon tungkol sa manunulat, may kukonekta mo ito sa mga karakter o aral na sinulat nito. Gayun din ang mga patterns at pag-uugali na ipinapakita ng mga karakter, manunulat at maaaring ring mambabasa. Makikita din rito ang taon kung kailan ipinablish ang akda. Mga karakter o pangyayari sa akda na maaaring nagre-representa ng mga kaparehong bagay sa buhay ng manunulat o author. Ang ibang mambabasa ay inaalam muna ang mga impormasyon tungkol sa manunulat. Nagsasagawa pa sila ng pag-aaral tungkol sa buhay ng manunulat para sa lubusang maintindihan ang mga sulat o akda nito.
And now, let us move on to biography. Biography is simply an account or detailed description about the life of a person. It entails basic facts such as a childhood, education, career, relationship, family, and death. For better understanding about this biography, let us listen to Joanne's explanation.
Biography, maaaring familiar na tayong lahat dito dahil ipinagawa na sa atin ito noong tayo ay nasa elementarya pa lamang at ganoon din sa junior high. Ang biography ay isang talambuhay na nagsasaad ng mga impormasyon tungkol sa isang tao. Ilan sa mga nakapaloob dito ay kwento ng kabataan na pag-aralan, trabaho, relationship, pamilya at taon ng kamatayan. Pawang katotohanang mga impormasyon at datos lamang ang mga nakasulat dito.
In this topic, you should not be confused because we are going to discuss about autobiography. Autobiography is a self-written life story. It is different from biography, which it is the life story of a person written by someone else.
Autobiography. Ito ay iba sa biography. Ang autobiography ay isang talambuhay kung saan ang talambuhay na isinulat ay buhay mismo ng manunulat nito. Magkaiba ito sa biography dahil ang biography ay isang talambuhay na gawa ng ibang tao. Halimbawa ng autobiography ay pangarap galing sa aking ama ni Barack Obama.
Oops! Take note that you should not assume that all works are confessional, biographical, or even true to life. A literary text is according to the author's perspective and will be heavily influenced by him or her. But it's not the only way of studying literature. Now let's move on to linguistic context. According to David Richer, practically everything we do that is specifically human is expressed in language. A linguistic context is mainly about the language or the choice of words of the author. This also includes sentences, patterns, imagery, and etc. of the text. Most of the readers use some strategies related to linguistics to get to know more the meaning of literary piece.
Linguistic context, ito ay karaniwang tungkol sa lengguwahe na ginamit ng manunulat o may akda sa kanyang mga gawa. Nakapaloob dito ang mga pangungusap, patterns, at imagery ng pangungusap. Ang mga mambabasa ay gumagamit o naghahanap ng ibang paraan o nagsasaliksik tungkol sa mga lengguwahe upang mas lubusang maintindihan ang nilalaman ng kanilang mga binabasa.
Some of the strategies that the reader use are the following. First, analyze the diction or choice of words in the text. Second, examine the text, syntax or use of sentences, clauses, phrases, lines, cuts, and etc. What do you mean by the word syntax? Well, syntax is a grammatical structure of words and phrases to create sentences, the format in which words and phrases are arranged to create sentences.
Syntax. Ito ay ang format ng pagkakayos ng mga salita na nakapaloob sa isang pangungusap.
What do you mean by clauses? Clauses defined as a group of words that includes a subject and a verb. And clauses has two forms. These are independent clause and dependent clause. When we say independent clause, it defined as one that can stand alone as a sentence, while dependent clause defined as one that cannot stand alone.
Clauses. Sa Tagalog, ito ay tinatawag na sugnay o kalipunan ng mga salitang may simuno at panaguri na maaaring may buong diwa o di buong diwa. May dalawang uri ng clauses o sugnay. Ito ang independent at dependent clauses. O sa Tagalog ay sugnay na nakapag-iisa o sugnay na di nakapag-iisa. Ang sugnay na nakapag-iisa ay may simuno at panaguri at may diwa. Halimbawa ay siya ay lumuha, mabilis siyang kumain. Samantalang ang sugnay na di nakapag-iisa ay may simuno at panaguri, ngunit wala itong buong diwa. Halimbawa ay dahil sa kanyang katamaran nang mawala ang libro ko.
When we say praise, praise is defined as one or more words that form a meaningfully grammatical unit within a clause.
Praise sa Tagalog ay parirala ng mga salita may malalim na kahulugan sa isang sugnay.
Number 3 strategies that readers use are observe the use of figurative language.
When we say figurative language, it is when you describe something or by comparing it to something else. Here are some examples of figurative language. The first example that we have is simile. When we say simile, it defined as compares to unlike things and uses the words like or as. Another example that we have in figurative language is metaphor. Metaphor compares two things that are not alike. Unlike simile, metaphor does not use like or as. We also have hyperbole. When we say hyperbole, it means an exaggeration that is created to emphasize a point or bring out a sense of humor. Another types or example of figurative language is we have alliteration. When we say alliteration, it is the repetition of the same first consonant sound in the two or more words. Last but not the least example of figurative language is we have the personification. When we say personification, it means a thing is given a human attribute. That's personification.
Another strategies that some readers use or do is analyze the mood and tone of the text. When we say mood, it is the feeling you get while reading the literary text or an atmosphere of the story. While when we say tone, tone is defined as the author's attitude toward the subject, word choice, or praise. Another strategies is observe the text overall structure. And last but not the least strategies that some reader use or do is analyze the content of the text. Now let's move on to socio-cultural context. When we say socio-cultural context, it's mostly about the social, economic, political, and cultural forces affecting the work that you are reading. This also includes the following. First, relationship between the characters or the speakers in the text and their society. We also have issues and gender, race or class, economic or social power, social order, lower class, middle class, and upper class. And lastly is the literary theories, approaches, and perspective. For further ideas and knowledge, let us study the following types of perspective literary theories and their explanation. The first perspective that we are going to discuss is the Marxism. And the explanation on Marxism is, according to Marxist perspective, literature shows class struggle and materialism. Those it looks into the social classes portrayed in the work. It also looks into how the text serve as a propaganda material. It also examines operations, social conflicts, and solutions to these struggles as shown in the literary works. Let's move on to another perspective, which is the feminism. When we say feminism, it is the perspective examples the role of the woman in the literature. It looks into how the female character may be empowered or discriminated against. Another perspective is we have the queer theory. It is defined as the queer theory perspective is concerned with the queer or the third gender. The perspective itself was named in 1991. Under this perspective, the third gender meaning the gay, lesbian, and other characters or personnel in the literature that may fall under queer or being examined. Another perspective is we have the historicism. Historicism or traditional historical criticism is a perspective dealing with the history that influenced the writing of the literature. Now let's move on to another perspective, which is the post-colonialism. When we say post-colonialism, it is a literary perspective that looks into the changes in the attitude of the post-colonists after the colonial period. Though the perspective that the independence and dependence of the colonized countries of people are being examined. Last but not the least, perspective that we are going to discuss for today's lesson is about the New Historicism. When we say New Historicism, is another perspective in the socio-cultural context. It focuses not only to the history when the literary text was written, but also how the history happened. In New Historicism, the above-mentioned perspective can be integrated with each other. Now, after the discussion, I want you to take note of this. When determining the socio-cultural context in a literary text you are reading, set aside your political ideologies. Do your best to not be biased in reading. And that would be the end of our report for today's lesson. I hope you all enjoy and gained some knowledge or ideas about literary approaches. Again, I am Kyla Bukel Bautista, grade 12 GAS, and I am from Paitan Group.